welcome to Barcelona. You came in from Helsinki, so the weather is a lot better.
Warm and beautiful.
Warm and beautiful. As you already understood by now, there's a lot of entrepreneurs in the room. There's a lot of people thinking about how to develop and build things, and that's something that you've really been good at. You've been creating wonderful companies, and sort of could you just take us back to the start when you started out Flickr and how you were thinking and sort of the journey until it became the Flickr that we already know now?
Well, Flickr was a accident. It was a pivot, actually, as they are now known. But at the time, pivots were not actually looked on very well by investors in particular. So we had started a company in Canada. Flickr was actually started in Canada. We started a company called Ludicorp, and it was meant to build a social game. We were building a game called Game Never Ending. We had raised some money from friends and family, about $50,000. Literally friends and family, college roommates, dad, that kind of thing. And we started the company in 2002. We had gotten a prototype built, which was very popular and very successful. And the unfortunate thing was we were unable to raise any more money. We were rapidly starving to death. We had we were
so
starting.
It was called Game Never End, or what was it called?
Game Never Ending. And
Game Never Ending, and you were.
And it was tragic. And we had all these very very enthusiastic rabid users, and unfortunately the back end development got 6 months behind front end development, and there was no way that we were going to be able to ship this. We had no money. We would go from VC to VC with our cap in hand, saying like, please, please invest in us. And at the time, people didn't really understand what we were doing. This was 2002. The bust, the technology bust had just happened. Consumer internet was seen as dead. There was no money to be found anywhere at all. And so we were, only one guy was getting paid. That was the guy who had 3 kids. And the rest of us were, just kind of going by on our savings and, eating ramen noodles, cup noodles. And it was, so things were bad. And it was at the very last moment that we had applied 2 years prior to a Canadian entrepreneurs fund. We had been rejected the first year. We had mechanically resubmitted the application, and 2 days before Christmas in 2003, we received a note that they were going to send us a check for $50,000, which was this great fortune, and there was no way that we were going to be able to finish our game for $50,000. So we had this idea that we would create this little live application, a chat application, in which you could drag and drop photos and have them have a conversation about them. And this was sort of building on some of the social software that we had built previously. And so we created this thing. We managed to build it in about 7 weeks. We launched it at the O'Reilly Emerging Tech Conference. We had actually been invited there to speak about the game, but we hijacked our own talk and instead presented this new thing that we called Flickr, and we launched it, and people kind of liked it, but that itself was a failure. It was this chat client. It was built in Flash. It was actually a really kludgy and bad piece of software, and we fortunately, had been really stingy and, not spent our $50,000. And so we managed to stretch that $50,000 out into, several months further, and managed to iterate successfully with this photo sharing idea and built it into what, we see today now as Flickr. And we had a very tiny team. This was a 5-person team that was building this, and so it was built very much on a shoestring.
Did you have any idea of how many photos sort of roughly are on Flickr today?
Billions and billions.
Billions and billions.
I think it's the last time an announcement was made about the number of photos that were made. It was I think 4 or 5 billion. Lots. I can say that with confidence.
And did you believe in that when you were back there, sort of, okay, they're starting to interact, something might really happen here? Did you believe in it when you were eating your ramen noodles?
We're eating our ramen noodles. I mean, it was, you can feel it when it happens. You can feel this sort of magic moment happen. You feel as if you're dragging this 2,000-pound rock behind you, right? And you're sort of trying to start a company. It's a real big struggle. And then all of a sudden, boom, you let it go and you start moving really fast, and you find out that you've been training, by carrying that rock around, and you can suddenly run incredibly fast, and boom, you're going really fast. I mean, it's an amazing feeling when, you know, the company, like after you know, struggling for years sometimes, you know, suddenly this juggernaut happens.
What was some of your sort of most memorable moments from that journey?
Well, I remember very vividly. So when you start a piece of specialty social software, what you do is you invite all of your friends. So you know, I would invite my my 20 closest friends, and they would kind of hang out with me there, and they would invite sometimes their friends, and hopefully if that keeps on going, and so on and so on and so on. And I remember very vividly when I was just surfing around the site, and we had only opened it a couple weeks before, and most of the people on the site were people that we knew, and I found this little group of people in the UK who were using the software that I did not know, and they didn't even know people that I knew. And I remember getting very, very excited about this. Those people that I don't know in another country who are using my software, and I just got extremely excited about that.
But how could you then scale success? Because a lot of companies that are blessed with success, like our first e-commerce company, we had 1 million customers in Europe, 97, and there weren't any e-commerce companies almost. But to scale that was so difficult.
It's interesting because a lot of these problems have been solved, fortunately. Back in the day, people will remember perhaps prior to Facebook, Friendster.
Yeah.
And Friendster had run into a lot of technical difficulties. Scaling these social networks was actually not a problem that was well known or had been solved. Mm-hmm. And at the time, in 2004, 2003, 2004, which was the sort of when the social networks started to explode, those technical problems were unknown, were difficult. A lot of these sites were falling down, mm-hmm. and best practices have now been developed. A lot of the problems that we ran into in those days, scaling the software, even the social scaling. I would say that social scaling is something that we now know how to do. So, when you start a new piece of social software, a lot of the things that you have to do is you have to maintain the community. You have to make sure that people behave well, that the spammers and the people posting obscene content don't take over. And you have to create a system in order to create a healthy community. Even then, those things were being developed live. Like, how do these friending systems work, and how do you prevent the bad people from taking over, which they will. And so a lot of these things, a lot of the things that were actually very difficult problems in 2004, we have learned how to do.
But that's like changing airplane engine in mid-flight. You have to deal with these things and grow at the same time.
Yes, exactly.
How do you manage growth like that?
Growing a company is fortunately it's a good problem to have, right? So so actually getting to the point where you have this problem is I think the meatier part of the struggle, because once you hit that point, there will be people to help you. You know what I'm saying? There will be people. It's really funny. So we started out. We were going kind of door to door, knocking desperately. Will somebody please give us just enough money to last a few more months so that we can build our product a little bit more? And then as soon as you're successful, like, they're beating down your door, you can't get rid of them. They're sort of like running. It's just feast or famine. That's kind of often the way these things tend to go.
But you have been unsuccessful too. You've been part of companies that weren't successful, not companies that you started, but still.
Yeah, I have. I mean, I've been doing startups pretty much since I moved to California. It was great fortune, actually. I was an English major. I studied literature, and I had been planning on getting a PhD in Renaissance literature and going to Berkeley. And so I ended up in San Francisco on my way to go. It's a long story. Way to go rock climbing in Nepal. However, my sister was living there, and I went to visit her, and my rock climbing trip got canceled, and I was looking for something interesting to do, and the most interesting thing going on in 1994 in San Francisco was the web, and it was very clear that was what I was going to do. And so just completely taught myself how to do the software. There weren't any books or anything at the time, and the startups, I joined a bunch of startups. There were a lot of startups around in those days, and some of them were you learn a lot from other people's mistakes, hopefully, if you're kind of paying attention. So I think if you're an entrepreneur and you're starting out and you don't yet have your big idea, the best thing to do is really just go join a startup. And there's a lot of startups out there, and they're flourishing. And they're the best way to learn how to be an entrepreneur is to and hopefully, watch other people succeed, and sometimes you learn a lot by watching other people fail.
But what do you think that this power to create, and now you're creating a new company, I'll ask you more about that later,
Yeah.
the sort of the urge to create things, what does that come from? Have you always had that with you, or can you train somebody to be an entrepreneur, or?
Yes, I mean, I think that just making. It's been discussed already here up on the stage about the need for failure, the need to get used to it, right, and kind of learn to stomach it. Plant a tree now, rather like your best time is like 20 years ago, but you should do it now. I think that you can actually by practicing risk. Learn how to make risk, because it's much less terrifying the second time. Failing the first time is terrifying. Failing the second time, you're like, I did this already once before. Failing the third time, I habitually fail at this point. I mean, it's kind of it's a thing that I think it's a thing that you really need to learn how to do. And I had lunch a couple weeks ago with Reid Hoffman, whose company had just IPO'd that week.
LinkedIn's founder, Reid Hoffman.
The founder of LinkedIn, and he
$9.8 billion first day on the stock exchange.
Yeah, fantastic outcome for them. And they have been building that company for 10 years. I mean, it's not a lot of these successes seem to be a flash in the pan, but this has been like a company if you're a Fortune 500 company, 10 years also seems like a short period of time. But in technology, that seems like a lifetime. Mm-hmm. And we were talking about how in the career of an entrepreneur, if you have a failure, it's just it's actually just kind of expected. I mean, that's just sort of the way things are. Your career is seen as a series of chapters. Each of those chapters is a company, and people don't remember now that Mark Pincus, who is the founder of Zynga, had previously run a company called Tribe.net, which was not successful, and prior to that had another company which itself was very successful. So you look at your careers like that. You look at, Evan Williams, who was very successful with Blogger, did second company, Odeo, did not work out, and then Twitter was a raging success. I mean, it's actually very, very common.
Odeo means hate in Spanish, so maybe he should have started with checking the name.
Yes, yes. So there you go. So you really, I think that kind of the failures that you have along the way should not be seen as failures. It's just the kind of the process. It's just
but that's something successful people say, because they failed and they succeeded. But if you're the unsuccessful guy and your company doesn't seem to make sense, how do you know when to stop it, or how do you know when to sort of I'm really going to do this?
Yeah, I mean, there are these people who, are absolutely, they're crawling with bloodied fingers like across the desert, and it's just killing them. And it's really, and at some point you have to look at, say, there's other things in my life that I should be focusing on rather than trying to make this thing work. And some people, frankly, are just not entrepreneurs. I mean, sometimes you have to kind of look at yourself and your life, and what is it that I really want to do, and is the suffering that comes with this risk taking too much to bear? It's one of those kind of things that there's all of these sort of inspirational quotations that you can tell yourself, such as whatever. Winners never quit, and quitters never win, and all this kind of stuff. But whatever, you have to know yourself, and you have to know what your energy level is, and you have to feel it.
But you were rumor has it when it didn't go super fast, you were mortgaging your house. You were really going into more. You were investing more at that time.
I was like going deeper in, kind of really. Yeah, exactly. I did do that.
You did take a loan on your house, and
my house was like mortgaged, like as much as you possibly can mortgage a house, and you know, that's not for everybody. I mean, you know, it's not for everybody. It just isn't. But the conviction that you have to have has to be pretty strong to be an entrepreneur in the first place. And
what were 3 things I asked you that you wish you knew before you started the company?
Well, I mean, it's interesting. One of the hardest things when your company is not succeeding is, in order to get a company going, you have to convince everybody that it's a good idea. You have to hire people. You have to bring everybody into the vision and say, like, we're going to build something great, and you have to believe that very much yourself. But then you also have to convince other people of it as well. And then you've done that. And then you find yourself in this very bad situation where things are completely falling apart. You're unable to raise any money, and you're failing. And the thing that is so painful is actually going into work every day and like looking at the people who have been sitting there with you night and day, struggling to make this dream a success, and say to them, I'm sorry, you're not going to get paid again for another month. I mean, that's just like, it's excruciating. That's just a painful thing to have to do. These are things that I had no idea about. You know, and I don't know if, is that something that you can prepare for? I'm not really sure. I'm not really sure.
What do you think that large corporations can do? Are they completely, they can't sort of play the entrepreneurial game, or on the contrary, like Werner said, there's
Werner, he said something which was brilliant, actually, which was make the problem smaller. And when I sat there and I heard him say that, I'm like, that is brilliant. That is actually, that is the thing that big companies need to do. So Flickr was acquired by Yahoo, and I went to work at Yahoo, and the time that I was there was actually a flourishing time inside of Yahoo. And
but by then Yahoo was a big company.
Yahoo is a very big company.
When do you put somebody like yourself in a big company?
Yeah, and you know, building an entrepreneurial culture inside of a big company, we had all of these things that have now become where's it going? Best practices in big companies, having hack days and, you know, freeing up the organization a lot. But I really do think that building very small teams of passionate people and getting the resources to those people, and then keeping the rest of the organization out of the way, is what managers need to do.
So protect the entrepreneurs from the immunity system of the company.
Exactly, and you know, it's you know, some people call us, I'm going to swear on stage here, you can either be a shit umbrella or you can be a shit fan. And so like the job of the manager is to be the shit umbrella. And so like when it all inevitably comes down from the top, you know, you're protecting all of your people from all of the things that are coming down on them, and making sure that it doesn't get in their way.
Tell me about Hunch. It's your new company?
So Hunches came out of the conviction that, so Web 2.0 was largely about you know, sharing, participation, people going online, and the data that was was being created by all of this was something that I felt, if you were able to own that, if each of the individual users was able to own their piece of information, that data could be used to help them in an infinite number of ways. And so I felt that the big companies that would be coming subsequent to Web 2.0 would be the companies who were able to utilize this data in a way that was helpful and useful to the users. So what Hunch does is Hunch is basically a platform for people to use their taste. It's creating the taste graph of the internet, if you will.
The taste graph?
The taste graph. So there's a lot to talk about, for example, the social graph. The social graph is all of the connections to your friends and everything that you have on Facebook. The taste graph is basically all of the things that you would like, things that you have affinity for. So the great goal of Hunch is to take every person on the internet and everything on the internet and be able to tell you what the affinity is between those two things. So, you know, there's a hotel, you know, so Hunch knows, for example, that you, for example, would like to go to a hotel that has an active nightlife, that there's people in the lobby, there's there's things going on, and it would recommend these hotels to you. It would know that this other person is a business traveler and they need like a business center and they want lots of services and 24-hour room service, et cetera, et cetera. So they would kind of recommend this list of hotels to them. And so it could do anything, like college majors and cookbooks or whatever, what have you. And Hunch has recently pivoted into being, it was actually meant to be a consumer-facing product. There's a great deal of it now that is based on partnerships with large e-commerce companies, et cetera. So.
Cool, and how big will Hunch be?
Hopefully tremendous.
Thank you very much to you, and let's meet after lunch.
Thank you.